The rise of globalisation has also resulted in the obliteration of borders. Increased cultural exchange destabilises national identities and stimulates global homogenisation. Japanese-American artist Masami Teroaka addressed this issue with his early watercolour paintings inspired by Japanese woodblock prints. According to the artist, these paintings often focused on the clash of my two cultures, East and West. Series such as McDonald's hamburgers invading Japan and 31 flavors invading Japan characterize some themes in my work of this time period. I was concerned about fast food homogenizing world tastes. Now we would say I was addressing cultural globalization, but this was the early 70s, before that language or concept exists. In 1994, Chinese artist Wei Wei began what was to be his longest-running series by painting the Coca-Cola label directly onto a 2,000-year-old Chinese ceramic. Why might he have done this? Is it problematic that an artist has taken an object of historical significance and essentially defaced it? What do you think it is about this work that inspired him to continue the series for so many years? The Coca-Cola logo is loaded with meaning. The company's worldwide spread has made it a symbol of globalization, and in China, Coca-Cola now holds over 50% of soft drink sales. The work seems full of contradictions, old versus new, Western capitalism versus Chinese communism, handcrafted versus mass-produced. With this series, Weiwei succinctly articulates the invasion of Western values and the destruction of Chinese cultural past by the means of commercialism and capitalism. Chinese artist Cai Guo-Qiang encourages viewers to heal rifts caused by the obliteration of borders by inviting them to soak in a hot tub as part of his exhibition, Cultural Melting Bath. Italian artist Alighiero e Boetti obliterated national borders by drawing attention to their transience with his series of large embroidered maps of the world, Mappa. The first of this series was produced in 1971, and by the time of his death in 1994, roughly 150 had been produced altogether. Each map uses national flags to represent individual countries. So given these maps were produced over a period of more than 20 years, during which time the world saw major geopolitical events such as the collapse of the Soviet Union and the demolition of the Berlin Wall, what impact might these works have when viewed together as a series? As a series, the constantly shifting national borders illustrate shifting world politics and draw attention to the constructed nature of geopolitical boundaries. Countries come into and out of existence from one map to the next. For example, because the maps were produced by Afghan women, Israel was not represented in some of the maps because the Taliban regime of Afghanistan did not recognize their existence.
One studio assistant estimated that over the course of Boetti's career, he employed probably as many as 1,000 Afghani women. If you see several of the mappas, you start to understand how they document and comment on the change of the world as it occurs. If you look in the country of Afghanistan, which after 1979, Boetti often leaves white as a sign of protest against the Soviet invasion. The country of Namibia has been left white for many years after Boetti expressed his disagreement with the South African occupation. And only in 1991, after the final independence of Namibia, would Boetti switch to incorporate this newly designed national flag into his own designs.
Adding to this sense of geopolitical unrest is the fact that the embroidery itself was by Afghan women refugees who were exiled to Pakistan when the Soviets invaded their country.
In 1979, when the Soviets invaded Afghanistan, the embroiderers fled to Pakistan. There they began producing for Boetti again, and continued to inscribe the borders of the maps with their own statements.
Often in these borders, one would find words like made in Peshawar, Pakistan by Afghani people. Or you would find references to a lost homeland. You would find references to the increasingly longer times that it would take to produce these maps as they had to move from one place to another, often carrying the half-finished works with them.
A map is supposed to provide definitive locations for the boundaries of countries, continents, rivers, and oceans. By illustrating their transience, Boetti's series undermines the reliability of maps as ordering systems of the world. Wouldn't it be interesting to see how the maps might have continued to change due to other factors such as climate change? Some artists are prompted to make a record of borders before they become obliterated. Hong Kong artist Samson Young works primarily in the medium of sound performance. His work, Liquid Borders, was prompted by the government's 2012 decision to gradually reduce the frontier closed area, the restricted zones that run along the border between Hong Kong and mainland China. This was one of many actions that threatened Hong Kong's autonomy since the former British colony returned to the Chinese rule in 1997, and such actions continue to meet resistance from Hong Kong people. According to the artist, thinking about the border as such a charged physical and psychological barrier, I realized that, like most people living in Hong Kong, I had never seen it. It was always a closed area that you needed to apply for a permit to enter. So my original intention was to design an exercise to walk the border. I thought that if I took recordings in a methodical way, it would allow me to go and see all of the sites and give me time to think about its significance. So it started as an archiving exercise, collecting sounds and taking photographs of their locations. Over a period of 2 years, Young visited all the restricted zones along the Hong Kong-China border. He used contact microphones to record the vibration of the wide fencing and headphones to capture sounds of the Shenzhen River. He then rearranged these recordings into sound compositions and then transcribed these compositions into graphical notations. Take a look at these works. What nationality might the artists who have produced them have been? British-Nigerian artist Yinka Shonibare is known for his headless mannequin figures dressed in Victorian-style European costumes fashioned out of batik patterned cloth. Why do you think the figures are headless? And what might be the significance of the fabric? The brightly coloured batik fabric is a trademark of Shonibare's work. His interest in the material is connected to his self-proclaimed status as a post-colonial hybrid. The patterned fabric is strongly associated with African cultural identity. However, its provenance is much more complex.
One of my tutors said, "Why aren't you making authentic African art?" I felt that actually what's authentic African art, or what's authentic identity in a global modern world. And so those questions have been with me since, and I've explored those questions in many ways.
Challenged by his teacher about why he wasn't producing art that looked African, Yinka found inspiration in Brixton, London.
I went to Brixton Market and found some fabrics there. I always imagined the fabrics were authentically African, and then I was told that the fabrics are Indonesian-influenced fabrics produced by the Dutch. But I liked that history of the fabric, and I liked the global connections and the kind of trade routes of the fabric. The fabrics are a very good metaphor for a contemporary African existence, if you like. Actually, my work is really breaking down stereotypes. I'm saying, you know what you see is not necessarily what you get. So you might actually want to take time to find out more about something before you then start to make assumptions about it.
Why are so many of them headless or have globes as head?
First of all, I wanted to produce figures that didn't belong to one particular race.
You wanted to take race out of the picture.
Yes, I wanted to take race out of the picture. A lot of the, figures are, of a mixed race. They are neither white nor black. And I think that also I wanted to get away from the, binary, the dividing of people. I felt that, we're all one humanity. So I wanted to find a way to represent one humanity and also take the race equation out of it.
These works can therefore be read as a comment on the effect of globalism on the cultural identity of individuals.